that up.
Okay, so well, here's
BloombergQuint here in Davos at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting. And I have with me Anish Shah. He's Group President Strategy at Mahindra & Mahindra, but he's also Managing Director and CEO Designate. As you will recall, M&M just put out a succession plan, and in a year's time, Anish will be taking over from Dr. Pavan Goenka. Well, we spoke to Dr. Goenka earlier today, and he spoke of a potential pickup. At least those are the signs he can see in the auto business right now. But with Anish, we're going to talk a little bit more about his initial thoughts for the group. It is one of India's best-known conglomerates, and what his vision is for the next several years for M&M. Thank you very much for talking to us here at Bloomberg.
Glad to be here, Mr.
Let me start by asking you, what was the first thought that occurred to you when they said that you'd been picked by the NRC to lead this group next?
I was absolutely thrilled. The Mahindra Group is a fantastic group, and one that I felt so comfortable with, despite having been there for a short time. And it really resonates in terms of what it does with communities, our credo of rise, enabling our communities and customers to rise. And it just felt a huge responsibility. And at the same time, I was humbled, honored that that responsibility was conferred on me.
Okay, not nervous?
Not nervous at all.
Okay.
Having been here for 5 years, I have a good sense of the group and what we can do.
Sure.
So that made it much easier from my perspective.
Okay, before I get to that, you know, one of the things that struck me as I was looking through your succession planning is that Dr. Goenka brings with him like over a decade of R&D experience at a global automaker. He came to Mahindra & Mahindra, worked on helping develop the Scorpio. Your skill set, your areas of expertise are very, very different, even though you've worked for 5 years in an auto company. So I imagine that in any company's progress, a new leader shapes that company in his or her own vision. What do you expect will be that vision, once you take over in the next 2 years? I'm sure you're already thinking about it.
So, let's start with first who we are today and what we have.
Okay.
Right? Mahindra is a brand that stands for values, for governance. It's a brand that creates trust in people, that has a huge amount of responsibility to its customers, its communities, and all of that is something we need to sustain. So I essentially first look on myself as a custodian for our brand values, and to be able to take that brand forward.
Sure.
The second part is we embarked on a journey of technology with a lot of efforts in digital, in AI, IoT, in data sciences, and that's something we need to continue accelerating, and need to accelerate that to be able to change or deliver to customers what I call a magical experience.
Okay.
We do that in some pockets today, but we need to do that consistently across, and technology enables that. That will be a key differentiator for us and something that again links into the Mahindra brand. The third part is we have maintained over time fairly strong financial discipline. Yes, there are a number of folks who will say you are in multiple businesses, some may not have worked, but if you look at the value creation over time, it has been quite significant. Our board, even over the last 2 or 3 years, has even further ratcheted up the financial discipline. We have something called a challenge round process for every proposal that goes to the board. And over the last couple of years, the board had asked me to lead it, and the rigor that we put companies through is fairly significant. So a lot of this is not seen outside. Some of it may be seen more over time, but that again is something I would say we continue to maintain and enhance to some extent to give a little more comfort that we are focusing on areas where we can win, we have a clear right to win, and where we can execute.
Okay.
So that's essentially the framework by which we look at. So in terms of the overall vision, I would continue to look at the Mahindra Group as one that enables our communities and consumers to rise, to deliver magical customer experiences, and we will play in a number of different industries where we feel that we have a right to win and enhance the synergies across the industries as we go forward.
So you have conviction in the conglomerate model. I'm not asking specifically only from the M&M point of view, but I think over the last 2 decades we've seen much debate around the kind of value creation that conglomerates can make. And in fact, we often see that for companies like M&M, one of the things that pulls stock prices down is the holding company discount, as they call it, right? So you're convinced that the conglomerate way is the way to go for the next several years?
So I would first say that we are a federation, not a conglomerate. It's a very important distinction. And yes, I'm convinced on that, and part of my job will be to convince others why this is such a good model. As a federation, we don't get into details for operating companies.
Sure. Each one
so
is
we
listed,
operate,
most of them
each
are
one's listed from
most
a
of them
governance
have their own
standpoint.
boards and your own managements.
Their boards run them as well. So we in some ways more like a Berkshire Hathaway from that perspective. The difference though is there are significant synergies across these companies. So when we look at sourcing, which is a big part of the cost for auto and for farm, if that's done together, that helps them reduce costs quite significantly. If you look at the customer, for example, a consumer coming in to buy a car, in many cases, the consumer would go to a dealership, look at a car, select a car, then apply for financing somewhere, apply for insurance somewhere else. And then once they have a car, there will be other needs from a maintenance standpoint. If they have to sell a car, they have to go somewhere else to sell it. What we're looking at is, can we synergize to do this across all our companies and offer the customer a seamless
But
experience?
that's still just the car universe, right? What's the connection to holidays? Or what's the connection to real estate?
Agreed.
Or affordable housing? Or logistics, right? Those are all group businesses. So there is no apparent, tangible connection within the various businesses. I understand you're styling yourself like a large private equity fund or like a Berkshire. But do you see big value in that in the decades to come is my question. You've said yes.
So let me give examples of that,
Okay.
because that's the right set of questions. And you're right that there are some synergies that will be apparent for a consumer in a certain set of industries.
Right.
But let's look at your question around holidays and auto. Right? We were piloting an AI technology. We started with Club Mahindra Holidays for that. We were looking at AI to do digital marketing. I won't go into details of that in our conversation today, but that can really transform the way we can deliver value to customers. And the auto business, as I saw the results from holidays, took that and has deployed that today as well. So in the world today, we're going to see a lot of change happening very quickly. So our challenge is, how do we find best practices across our portfolio, be able to transfer them quickly. There will be learnings, there will be things that work, there will be things that don't work. And those are areas where if we are focused on delivering value, that comes back to, can we deliver value, can we win in the areas we play in?
Okay.
That's how we would do it. And as you rightly said, those questions do exist outside. And part of my job is to be able to show real examples of where the real value was added to enhance value for investors. And hopefully at some point we can move from a discount on a conglomerate model to a premium on a federation model.
Okay, so maybe one of two ways that I can think that might happen is that if you separate out your auto business from the main parent company right now, whatever the nomenclature be, etc., where the auto business can then demand a valuation that's suitable to the auto business and not be suppressed in any way or boosted in any way by the valuations of the other business, and then you just have a holding company or an investment company that owns the stakes in all of this, and you don't particularly care how the share price of that company does. So that's one way to do it. The other is to see if you want to narrow your portfolio. The flip side to that would be the question, would you look to expand your portfolio either? So all of these questions to you.
See, for us, it's more around, the basic question is, can we create value? If we can create value, it's about how can we communicate it then in a way that people understand that. Spinning out a company or not, in some ways, is an artificial step. It essentially tells us that we have not been able to communicate that value clearly. The reason it's together because there is greater value that is created.
Okay.
So that's part of our challenge. And as you ask about, are we getting into new areas? I think the question will be first, can we become much bigger in areas we are in today? We're in a vast variety of areas. Yes, there may be one or two things we would look at, but at this point I wouldn't say that we're going to go out and look at a lot of new things. I think it's more about driving scale in businesses that we are in. And as we do that, that will enhance more value for our shareholders.
Okay. Your bio lists this, and you spoke of it as well. Data sciences, digitization, all of those are areas that you're an expert in. How do you expect that will shape your vision of M&M? What can we expect M&M to look like 5 years from now?
What we can expect is a company that across its businesses delivers what I call magical experiences to customers. Right? That's where you can really leverage technology. I would want customers to go and say, wow, I transacted with M&M. I bought a car, I bought a tractor, I went for holidays with Club Mahindra, or bought a residential apartment with Life Spaces. And the experience was fantastic. The company took care of me. They knew what I wanted. They delivered exactly what I wanted in a way that was seamless.
You're not answering my question. Of course, you want to deliver magical experiences today, yesterday, and day before as well.
That's right. But
I'm sure you did not want to deliver magical experiences.
No, but what the difference today is that technology makes it possible.
Okay.
Right? And it's about how you bring in technology from various sources and be able to do that for a customer.
Okay.
Right? This was not possible 5 years ago. Today it's possible in certain pockets. But it's about how do we take that forward.
Okay. One operational question. I think Partha steps down, later this year, and you're going to handle the finance portfolio for a year.
Yes.
In the succession plan, they did not name a CFO thereafter. Is that something that the board will consider closer to 21?
We have started a search for a CFO already.
Okay.
And that gives us a time to be able to look both internally and externally and find the right CFO. Mm-hmm. So this was a very detailed, thought-through transition plan. As you're aware, the board took a lot of time, looked at various different options, and then beyond the options also thought through what was the transition that needed to be done. So in many ways it makes me feel a lot more comfortable, a lot easier in terms of how this plan is working out.
All right, Anish, I'll leave it there. I know I have a long list of questions, but I think
I'm sure we will have time to look at all of those questions.
I can, suitably put them to you. Yes. Congratulations,
Okay.
Thank you very much for speaking to us here on BloombergQuint.
Pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.